Hey guys, it's Pam. Welcome to this balayage sun-kissed effect technique. And the reason why I call this a sun-kissed effect is because of the application. I use my L'Oreal board or paddle and my Keune cream bleach. I have 20 volume mixed here. I use my redken small brush. And the consistency of my bleach is not quite as thick as it can be, but not runny either. You want to have I've heard some people use like a paste-like consistency. My sections are about an 1/8 inch deep, and I put the board in because I want to heavily saturate the ends. So I actually at times scoop up a large amount of lightener and lay it on at least halfway down to the ends and feather up the lightener. Because the section is only an 1/8 inch, you probably don't have much fear that you're going to make chunky looking highlights. I use my plastic strips on top and bottom as work my way up. So a technique like this is great if you want to give someone an overall lightened feel. Maybe even great for a blonde on blonde. But she's relatively dark considering. Her ends are a little lightened as you see in the top of the clip. But you want to lay your product on a little heavy. And the hair, since the product is a little heavy, there's a lot of tension on the hair between that board and her scalp. There are going to be times when you notice it kind of tugs on her a little bit. I put a plastic strip on top and it adheres pretty well. So we're moving on to the second side. I didn't think it was necessary to show you the whole right side, left side, etc., etc. But as long as you can get an idea, as long as you keep your sections about 1/8 inch deep, you can safely and confidently do this technique. The spacing that you choose will depend on how light you would like to see your client. So for example, my section here is 1/8 inch, and I'm probably taking a generous 1/4 inch in between sections, but I'm taking that 1/8 inch off the top of that section. You want to be smooth with your application, especially into the ends. You want to make sure you have good saturation, and when you're feathering your product up, you want to be sure it looks smooth. Sometimes there can be like little pebble or little round balls of lightener. You want to make sure you smooth those in, because if they just sit on top but you don't smooth them out, then it'll look speckly. And you can see that hair will stick to the board fairly well. See how I gave it a tug? So you need tension when you're doing a balayage color. And using the board and heavier saturation for the ends is what's going to give you that tension. And you can see how dark her hair is. And we wanted a beachy kind of sun-kissed effect. And without having to weave in, we just take our 1/8 inch slices. And what you saw me just do there was I smeared the product onto the board held the brush upright to take a little line across the edge of the bristles. And I may demonstrate that to you again, but I think you get the idea. So see, you don't have to go all the way to the scalp each and every time. Natural highlights don't tend to do that. Here you'll get a better look-see as to how, see how there's like tension in that area because I stuck it to the board first. So I suppose you could try to put the strip in first, but what I'll find is A, you won't be able to saturate the ends first easily, and B, you won't have anything to create that tension because you're just gliding across the top. An 1/8 inch section isn't generous at all, so you really don't want to pass through to the other side into the area that's closest to the scalp, say 2 to 3 inches in. And here, into the sides, you can still use your large board if you have a small board, or some people use a painter stick. Whatever you want to use, you can still create that tension even from that shorter section. So you don't have to be worried that only long hair can create that tension from the board. Different companies and different manufacturers have products you can use to take that small section. But if you just slice across the top very finely, you're sure not to create any harsh highlights. I mean, you could pretty much, if you wanted to, go all the way up to the scalp with that nice fine section. But look how the tension just is fabulous for this technique. I love the plastic sheets for this. Depending on what I'm doing, I'll use saran wrap or plastic sheets. It's just as easy for me to pick up the sheets, if not a little bit easier, and place them on the head than it is the saran wrap. See how very gentle? Just hitting the sides there because that's what's going to be seen from the face. So in that very front piece right there, I hit the side of it and the top of it. So it's got good saturation. And if you ever find that while you're doing this technique, yes, you want to have heavily saturated ends, but you really want to go a little finer with the application, the actual lay down of product as you work your way up. If you put too much, you can just easily wipe it off with the back of a comb or a dry brush. And if you're proficient, a technique like this doesn't take long to do a full application at all. And if you're doing a retouch, then what you would probably do is you wouldn't hold the hair with a paddle because you wouldn't be coloring the ends, but you'd hold it in your fingers like a typical balayage. So you'd hold the hair with the tips of your finger, pull tension, and just feather up from the place like a regrowth. So you'd be doing like a retouch app. And it may not make a big impact, but when I do pin the hair away like I did, I pin it closer to the scalp because some people have texturized hair or some people have finer hair where those little hairs pop up. So I like to pin my clips down close to the scalp where my parting was. Nice zoom in to show how I'm feathering up. And that bleach speckle is not sitting on her face, it's on a piece of plastic. So see, you can have sun-kissed highlights without any fancy tools or techniques. Well, maybe this is a fancy technique, I don't know. And I did change my volume of developer. As I made it to the front, I went ahead with 30 so that they could be timed out well. And because I can and I thought it was good for the technique, we toned her with Keune semi-color 10.31 with double parts of activator. See, tilted her head over. See how gentle? You just want to lightly feather over, but you have to make it smooth. If you have any little bubbles or little balls, I guess, is sometimes the only way to explain it, then it will look speckly. This is a great technique to learn on a blonde. If you've never done it before, just try it on a blonde because the lightness to darkness will be close enough to give you your sea legs if you've not tried this before. I always wear an apron because I always look like a hot mess by the time I'm done doing something. That's why I love to wear my aprons. And I work in a 10 by 12 studio, so the camera gal really doesn't have anywhere to go. And the plastic strips live in a box. I have, I think, medium size and extra long size. And people get a kick out of seeing hair covered in plastic for some odd reason. So if you ever see a little blonde 8-year-old and you see her hair color and it just looks absolutely fantastic and you know she's not been in to have any highlights, this is the technique that will get you there. Just depends on how much you decide to space your 1/8 inch slices. The closer you put them together, the blonder your client. The further apart you put them, the softer sun-kissed effect. So if I went section by section by section, maybe some sections I wouldn't have highlighted up. Maybe some sections I would have just stayed closest to the end. But that's what you notice with when you see the natural little blonde or even golden brown heads. So this is the sun-kissed technique. We did cut and style her hair, so you can look for the triangle shape, triangle layers haircut. And I did put a picture, just a quick still photo at the end for you to see the color, but the color will be demonstrated in a blow dry flat iron technique on the hair cutting video. Triangle shape, triangle layers. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post or send private messages. Some people like to do that. I'm here to help any way I can, if I can, and just want to keep encouraging you guys to try all these techniques out. See, the camera girl's behind me. I don't know what we were talking about, but and we're not trying to produce Hollywood style videos, just enough to get you guys to see the techniques. Thanks for watching, guys. And here's that beautiful finished result.